What's the coolest thing about being mixed?
I would say I understand a lot of different things from like both cultures, because both my parents had to have different kind of like visions of how they were going to raise me based on how they were raised separately. So I feel like I have a really good understanding of American households function versus how like Filipino households do.
So you were raised, you have two childhoods.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
All right, okay, that's kind of cool. That's very cool, actually.
I agree. I think I've really enjoyed, especially as I've gotten older, I've learned to enjoy the different aspects of American culture and Lebanese culture that I've been able to kind of they've become interwoven as part of my personality. I also lived in the UAE for most of my life, so their culture also kind of found its way in there.
Huh. What have you experienced as the most notable conflict in your households or relationships, or what's the most notable conflict? Hang on. Before we get to the answer to that question, I want to say, if you enjoy the conversation and what students have to say, please consider hitting the like button, because it supports the algorithm, and then more people will have the opportunity to experience the class. And if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're seeing here, please consider subscribing and turn on the bell notifications so you know when we go live.
I really want to say whatever drives them. Like Americans tend to be more laid back. My wife is like, don't stop. That your day's not over. You have a checklist, finish it.
So it's just it's being driven. Yeah.
Indubitably.
There's no rest for the weary.
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one is feeling just this being pushed in a way that you feel like is really uniquely from Chinese culture. Does she feel like that?
No. She thinks that's normal.
Yeah, that's the key, man.
I kind of agree with that. From a Filipino's perspective, that's also something that was very instilled in me by my mom, was to be very driven about like your academics and like whatever else you're doing. I feel like I'm like a very driven person, mostly because of how I was raised, like on her side, was to be very like driven for stuff like that.
But where's the conflict enter in? Because then you have your dad's side. That is, where's the conflict start?
I would say they've definitely disagreed on they both want me to get good grades, but there's definitely been a lot more conflicts with how I interact with it, like with my mom versus like my dad, because both my parents want me to get good grades, but it's a lot more of like a must for my mom versus like where my dad, I feel like he's a little more laid back with that.
And so do you find yourself leaning on your dad more or your mom more at certain times? Is that?
I feel like when I'm getting like yelled at for my grades and stuff, I like to run to my dad. But honestly, like I am really grateful for my mom's constant push to like be better and stuff like that.
And do they fight over that? Is that something they argue over?
I would say, yeah, they've definitely had arguments about stuff like that. But my dad's also very like, he lets it go. He's kind of just like, whatever.
The first one that came to mind for me was me being able to be at Penn State in person, because I did the last 3 years online because my entire family's in the UAE. And so what would be considered normal to my white family, to the white side of my family, my mom's side, is absolutely bizarre to the dad side of my family, just being so far away from my family, especially being the youngest daughter.
Wait, did you have to talk them into coming here?
Absolutely, especially my dad, yeah.
Whoa.
Especially because, I mean, it never would have worked when I was 18, just because I was a kid, especially in their eyes. And in Arab culture, like you're still considered a kid at 18. You're not.
You're gonna live at home,
not like, yeah, it's not like the U.S. where it's like, oh, you're 18, scoot. But yeah, I just say being here, it was a big difference in norms, and that was interesting.
I think from my parents, it was really about survival. In their heads, it was really about just kind of, like they were always in survival mode, no matter what it was. It could be like the smallest of issues, the biggest of issues. And it was always stress, like what she was saying. The stress to succeed, because if you don't succeed, you won't survive. And so kind of coming to America, like when they came here, I don't think they've ever adapted to that. And so...
so they themselves haven't adapted to what it means to be here.
And that sort of affected how I was raised, because when I was surrounded by like people who were just kind of chill, and more just they're like, yeah, like it's fine.
So you grew up as an American, right? They grew up as Filipino. So the conflict becomes you saying, hey, man, you, to your parents, you got to change how you are in the world. But you're not going to say that. You can't say that. So you have to. Yeah, so what's that? Like, say you're.
That
Like, you can't tell them to change because they're not going to change. First off, even if you convince them to, they won't be able to.
So here's the interesting part. I think my mom has kind of changed a little bit more to be more understanding of us, but like my father, more importantly, has not really done that. It's hard for him to kind of understand that. And like a lot of his paranoia sort of seeped into like what made me as a person. And so I think that like children of like immigrant parents might also feel that, where it's like their parents are also very much in the survival mode. And so I find it interesting that like I come here to Penn State and it's like, yeah, everyone's just pretty chill about it.
So because you're not in survival mode.
It's
Like it's not in your DNA here. It's different. You're born here, so you're in this American body. And so it's just very different, right? There's like a cultural DNA that's just not part of your reality in the same way.
yeah, it's not. I feel like I was sort of missing that for a lot of my life. I just never understood why they were so focused on just issues that didn't seem that large, or they would see things that I would
Yeah.
be upset about, and they'd be like, "That's nothing." And so
Right.
like, you kind of, it's a weird sort of conversation.
You know, this is one of the things that happens inside of immigrant families in particular. And again, not just here, but anywhere in the world, that you really don't see on the outside. You don't see like what it takes, man, what it takes to leave who you are, your place, where you are, who you are, what you are, and go and take that somewhere else and try to be different somewhere else. Like how to do that, what it means. It's like I have it because I've lived abroad in different countries, and man, I so often try not to be me, but I can't not be me. I'm going to do that. And so sometimes I just, like right now, when I spend a lot of time in Korea, and when I'm in Korea, I just lock myself down. Man, I just lock it down and don't let my personality be my personality. I just try to really shift it. Hey, if you want to watch the full lecture, the link to the playlist and the lecture is in the description. So just check it out. In fact, there's a lot of useful information that's connected to the class in the video description, including when we go live. And we do go live every Tuesday and Thursday during the semester and Wednesday afternoons throughout the year. Okay, let's get back to the class.
For instance, my wife is coming here in a few months on her green card finally. But she picked up the show Friends, and she's realizing her English is not as good as she wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So now she's constantly judging herself to such an extreme level, and that's normal for her. And here I'm going, your English is fantastic.
And especially for someone of Chinese culture, so her judging her, she's going to judge herself much more harshly
Absolutely.
than say like Christian here would, or yeah. No, but it's a thing that you can't understand that. So you're telling her, hey, no, your English is fine, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right. You're your own worst critic.
Yeah.
One thing that's really prominent in my family is like the sense of community. Filipinos are very like family is number one. I think this goes with like a lot of other Asian cultures too, but it's very expected of you to like take care of your parents when you get older and to like be there. Whereas like I feel like on my dad's side, they like love their family and everything, but there's also a big emphasis on like independence and like leaving the home once you're 18 and like going out to do stuff. Whereas it was like it's been really hard for my mom, like me being at Penn State, coming from California, because for her, she wasn't used to that, like being that far away from family. Whereas like my dad, he still loves me, but he also like, I don't think like that distance was that hard for him, because like for his family, like it was encouraged when he was 18 to like go out and like do his own thing.
Oh, that's so huge, man. That's just so huge. So for them, I can imagine the behind closed doors conversations and arguments that they had. Conversations all throughout your high school years about, you say, what's going to happen to you and are you going to be, and how much freedom they're going to give you and how much they're not going to give you. And in your case, taking 3 years just to convince them, hey, I can go do my senior year on the other side of the world.
That was the kicker. Senior year, I need the experience.
You need the experience? Is that because it's going to get you a better job or make you more marketable?
It's going to get me a better job. I never got the college experience. I'm grown now. It's time.
Yeah.
So,
and
that level of independence, I think, is good for me.
Yeah.
And I think he finally realized that towards the end of it. So, But absolutely the same situation that she talked about, like the different norms and the independence that the white side of my family expects me to have, or expected me to have at 18, moving out and getting a job and that sort of thing, and like making my way in the world and getting that grounding, that I didn't have those same expectations from my Arab side, because it's normal to stay with your family until marriage, really.
So how does that play out in your white side? Because the white side, do you experience a level of disappointment in them that your parents that your dad in particular, your Arab family is like destroying these opportunities in you? They're like, come on, man, like you're really hurting her. It's like, do you?
I think because my dad spent so long living in the States, he's a lot less rigid about these things.
Got
so
you.
he agrees with the level of independence, and that's why he's agreeing for me to come
That's why
here.
you got 1 year.
Exactly. Yeah. So other people in my family, especially other girls in my family, that's not happening.
Wait, okay, you mean they're not going to come here?
Unlikely. Yeah. And my older sisters didn't get to study abroad either. So I have 2 older sisters, and they wanted to, and it was a no-go. And then I won the lottery.
It's so fascinating, right? And there's not a right and a wrong.
Right.
See, the problem of this is there's no right and wrong here. Doesn't matter. There's 2 different cultures, and each culture has its own place and has its own way and has its own, and in the context of that culture, it's perfect as it is. But when you bring the cultures together, then it changes things up. There's nothing wrong with being like, why do you need to go to the other side of the world and have the experience, man? Just stay home. This is your family. You got everything here. It doesn't really matter. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So, it becomes, in the context by itself, it's not a problem. It's only a problem when you bring these other cultures together. Like if you're Chinese, bro, it's fine. You just work harder. Don't question it. You don't even question it. Just work harder. Don't stop your day at 8 o'clock or 6 or whenever you stop it, man. At 1 a.m. Yeah, exactly. It's not a problem, man. And you don't need to make any argument that your English is good enough. It's never good enough. It's never going to be good enough.
Learning is continuous, and that's really hard for some people to understand sometimes. You never stop learning, or you shut yourself off to new experiences.
But how does your wife see that, though? Is there ever an end point for her? Will it ever be good enough?
She told me to do my master's degree in 1 year so that I can finish my PhD before I'm 33. So
Why
no,
33?
it's never enough.
Why 33? Is that
She just wants me to get a
lucky
job
number?
sooner
I
and get
got
out
it.
of student life sooner.
Him talking about how your wife feels like her English isn't good enough made me think about how I frequently feel and am told that my Arabic isn't good enough despite being half Arab. Just because I grew up speaking English at home, my dad did speak Arabic, and he's fluent, but and take this with a grain of salt, but really the only kind of Arabic that I understand is the Lebanese dialect, and also the kind of conversations you have at home. So like in terms of business Arabic or professional Arabic, I can't be like, yep, that's on the resume, because it's iffy.
Yeah.
So that's something.
So then you really did need to come to here to have this other cultural experience, right?
Yeah.
Because you can put that in
We're
the
working
place
on
of
it.
business Arabic on
Right.
the resume. You can put cultural
Right.
experience.
We're working on it though.
Yeah.
So like now that we're on like the topic of language and sort of the language barrier, I think that's something that's very important because someone who speaks fluent English but not Tagalog, the things that my parents speak, a lot of our gestures, a lot of what we're saying is very much different from how it comes off to them. And so for my mom, who has really tried to perfect their English and then also tried to understand more of like the development of like the English language and how we say things but they don't exactly mean what we're saying, they mean a different thing. She's gotten better at that, but my dad really struggled with that. So kind of the communication barrier between that and him not being able to understand like what I'm saying to him and him saying something to me and not understanding what he really means by that is kind of something that I would like to point out. It's a very big conflict, at least in my life, where there would be whole arguments or like misunderstandings based on just kind of like a phrase or something that's been said that like neither of us would have taken if we understood what the gesture or like the underlying tone or meaning was.
Yeah. Are Filipinos really direct when they talk, or are they more like Chinese?
Kind of depends on the time and place. Like, they can be very direct. Yeah, I'd say very direct sometimes.
Would you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, very direct. That's my sense. But your wife's probably not direct though. Like you don't, or she maybe she is.
She
but-
is not. And it is extremely hard to understand some of her text messages sometimes.
because she's going around.
Yeah.
Because part of Chinese culture is like you don't necessarily always say exactly what you mean, and the idea is like I shouldn't have to say it. I don't have to say it, but you sort of. I just want to say enough to get you to see what I want you to see, but I don't have to go all the way.
I'm a very direct person, and if you don't spell it out for me, I'm going to miss it. And that is a really big issue I have.
With your wife?
Yes.
Yeah, totally, man.
Because she hates it when I'm going, what did you just say? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Getting that I can put myself in her shoes, getting that message multiple times a day, even then times a week, it probably gets frustrating and annoying.
Well, it's a whole different way of communicating. You know, for example, I have these interactions with people in East Asia. And I think my way of communicating is to be very direct, just to say, okay, well, here's what I'm thinking. But you don't ever start with, here's what I'm thinking, man. You start with waiting for them to say something, and then you know that what they're saying is not what they actually think. So then you have to say, okay, hang on, that's not what you think. You're not going to tell me the truth of what you imagine to be true. And so now I have to say something that helps you, that opens the doorway for you to be able to say something that maybe will get you closer to saying what you actually
You
think.
have to be able to guide their thoughts.
Yeah, you guide their thoughts. And they have to be able to, and their expectation is that you don't have a problem doing that. Her expectation is like, why would you have a problem doing that? Just, we don't talk in these direct ways. Do you see that at all with your parents, or are they Arabs are pretty direct, actually, so.
Not with my mom and dad, just because my dad has spent so long in the U.S. Upwards of 20 years. So they communicate pretty effectively.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
that's
of,
important, man. If he didn't have that, that's
Oh, yeah.
just really
Absolutely.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think they would have found each other if my dad wasn't in the U.S. Like my mom's from Tampa, so.
Oh, yeah. Also, you seem very American in your gestures.
Yeah.
Like, do you get that? Like, do you see that with her? You just feel very American.
I mean, it depends on where I am and who's around me. And leading up to this class, I was actually thinking about this, and I realized that I don't have as solid of a personality as an Arab, because I think I spend so long doing the like mechanical translation when I'm having a conversation with somebody.
So when you're with your dad,
Yeah.
is your personality? I'm going to ask you the same question. How different is your personality than when you're with your mom?
I think Arabic can be very playful.
Okay.
And I think that comes out with my dad sometimes, especially when he's in a good mood.
And then how about just gestures and the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you.
I think, and this is a very correct stereotype, but just hands flailing, just a lot of like
Yeah.
outwardly expressive. They're very expressive people.
So do you find yourself doing that differently when with your dad than with your mom?
Yeah, but also my mom, she speaks
become-
Arabic. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
adjusted very very
She's-
well.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So so I feel like it's essentially we're like a hybrid people. Sounds
Yeah,
so dramatic,
got you.
but there's like a balance to it. So both of my parents kind of are half American, half Arab in a sense because they just
Yeah.
flow like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's
Whereas when I'm with my Arab side of the family, I think I almost mirror them rather than be an Arab part of myself.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
So-
That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, that's
Yeah.
what I try to do when I'm in Korea.
Yeah, okay.
But it's hard, man. It's really, really hard.
It gets taxing.
Do you have that? Like, are you different when you're around your mom than when you're around your dad?
I mean, when I'm with like my mom, we go get Filipino food because my dad doesn't like it that much. But I feel like my
God.
mom's pretty Americanized because when she immigrated here, she was 7 years old. So she grew up
yeah.
in a Filipino like household, but she like went to school at an American school.
For you, and like, so you didn't have the clash that you could have.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's still definitely a lot of stuff that like in Filipino households really like sticks. Like I said before, like the community aspect of like you're expected to like take care of your elders. The language part is very like hierarchy too. So like typically in the Philippines, like you don't refer to your older siblings by like their names. Like you refer to them as like if it's an older sister, you call her ate, or like if it's your older brother, you call him kuya, or like if it's an older like cousins as well, use the same like names. Or like I noticed too, like for like my like family friends who are also Filipino, like I call the moms like auntie, like I'll say like auntie so and so, whereas like on my white side, like if we have like white family friends, like I just call the mom by their first name.
You just learn.
Like
to
it
do
just
that.
feels weird to like call my Filipino family friends like they're like my aunties like by their first name.
Okay, say quick question. So when you say that you're really expected to take care of your parents, Filipinos are expected to take care of their parents, right, bro? So you're living with that. You're just like going to be taking care of your parents. But wait, but for you only got to take care of your mom. Your dad's on his own. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, Dad, you got to go make it work for yourself. You know, do you have that? Do you live with that? Like you're.
I think that my parents have adapted a lot of like the American ways, so they understand like what a 401k is and like how to retire themselves. But I think the expectation is that I still will come visit them. I still will come spend time with them, and like you said, like a lot of that traditional sort of family values. And I think that's something that like can really highlight about Filipino culture. It's very family oriented, and I really like that about it sometimes.
Did you grow up in a Filipino community?
No.
Okay, so how much did you struggle with this when you were younger? Because your friends didn't understand your relationship with your parents and so on.
A lot. I think that they didn't see the sort of things that I saw when I was speaking with my parents. A lot of my friends were primarily white, so they got to kind of they had a lot of freedom. And so I was sometimes envious of that freedom, but eventually when I did get that freedom, we felt pretty equal.
Too, like that, like I had like a similar experience of like I noticed compared to a lot of my other friends, like growing up, I feel like sometimes I didn't have as much freedom as they did, and it was like one of those things I struggled with as a kid because it was like because like a lot of people would be like, oh, like I'm allowed to like get like social media or like I'm allowed to do like other stuff like that, and for me that was like a very like no-go until like almost like high school.
That communalism and the communication, I think, are like the biggest things. It was the biggest struggle for you. Oh, it was huge struggle for the first about 5 years. Like miscommunications back and forth because of not like language barriers, but like cultural differences in the ways that you would say things. So like she would say something a certain way and expect something from me. I would not understand that, and vice versa. And then
Because not because of the language barrier, but because you don't even imagine what it is that she's asking.
Yeah. Actually, at a point, I pointed out to her at one point. I was like, you You surprisingly don't have like a really strong Hispanic accent for like speaking Spanish your whole life is like, that was pretty much it. But she does have these weird like kind of like affectations, I guess you could say, for the way that she would say things. So she, like when she would be addressing her brother, she'd say, "Hey, where's my mom?" And I was like, "Your mom? What about his mom? Who's his mom?" Yeah, like small things like that. And that kind of like branched into our relationship, and it created a lot of divides and things. And then the communalism, same thing. I mean, that was a huge problem, moving her across the country, because also from California, you know, and being 3,000 miles away.
You can't move her. To move her across the country, she might as well have been going to the other dark side of the moon, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was a huge problem. Yeah, she was crying a lot about it. She's like, "I want to go see my mom, you know, I'll just take a flight over there real quick." And I was like, "Okay, yeah."
Yeah, right. This isn't for 1 year of college either, you know.